All right. Good morning. Hal Ginsberg here. And sorry if I'm just a tad tardy this morning, doing my best. I think I'm falling into some of my bad old habits. When I was doing the morning show back in Monterey, some of you I'm sure recall that there were times when I got into the studio, maybe just a hair later than was ideal. And today I have been, well, I don't want to say it's not hard work. It's just that I got a lot going on. I'm actually working still as a contract employee, as a staffer for the organization Our Revolution. And I have a lot of course, responsibilities in that vein. And yesterday was off because I had to have my teeth cleaned. And I was very pleased. My teeth are actually looking pretty good. They're in the best shape they've been in a while. Been really careful with the water pick. I do recommend that water pick. You can join me, 240-283-7262. I don't know if I'm going to go the full, I haven't actually done a full hour yet, to be perfectly honest with you. And you see me looking to the side, it's because I'm just looking at all my computers. I got computers here and computers, just like in the old days. It's the same old, same old. Miss my great friend Carl. He taught me so much about radio. Maybe we should observe a moment of reverence for the great radio man Carl in Marina. And we lost Carl a few years ago. I've never acknowledged, I don't think fairly, what a debt I owe to Carl for all he taught me. And just think how bad I'd be without him. I mean, I've really come a long way to become mediocre. And it was all because of Carl getting me as far as I could go. So Carl, really thank you so much for being a great friend, a great radio person, and an incredibly hardworking person. So I do want to acknowledge Marina, Carl Williford, who is just one of the great people that I've met and learned from over my life. It is the 7th day of March. It's a Tuesday. I missed my program yesterday, as I mentioned, because of the situation with my teeth. But I'm on today, and I will be on the rest of this week. I may have to scoot back just before showtime on Thursday, but I'm going to be on Thursday, and I want you to see that. You can see my great friend Medea will be joining us from Code Pink, and she knows a lot more about war and why it's wrong than I do. I've learned a lot from her, just as I have from Carl, and so we'll be talking about Ukraine. I know a lot of you disagree with me. I'm going to present some views that are a little bit counter to what I've been talking about recently about Ukraine. And if you want to join me about our war in Ukraine, in fact, I'll probably get to that in just a moment. Medea and I, let me say it this way. I was going to say Medea and I see it the same way. I'll say it this way. I see it the way Medea does. I think this is wrong. I think that there were myriad times when we could have avoided this conflict. I think the conflict that we're stoking, that we're provoking, that we're keeping going is disastrous for the people in that region from both the standpoint of Ukrainians and Russians. There are many better options available to us than continuing to provoke the Ukrainians and push them and prod them and support them in endless war against Russia. I think peace was possible. I hope it is still possible. And we have done what we could to avoid that outcome. So that's where I am. That's where I am on this, folks. 240-283-7262 if you want to join me. 240-283-7262. Let me get, so again, just join me this Thursday. We'll be starting at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific with Medea. And the great advantage of being live, watching me live. And I know a lot of people are watching videos. The numbers aren't bad. And you're watching for a long time. I'd love to have live viewers. Most people are watching when it's recorded, and that's fine. Of course, look, anything is better, right? I want you to be watching. I want you to be listening, but I want you to be watching and listening when I'm live, if possible, so I can talk to you, because that's really what this is about. It's a dialogue, and I'm having the dialogue with people who text, who post, but I'd love to have it with you directly. All right, let's get to our next text here, and I'm going to have to make that a little bit bigger. I think I should have done it this way. I'm going to switch back to Hal Speaker like this. Now let's see if we can do it like this. Yeah, I know you all love the text stuff, and this is where I was saying I got a little bit of a challenge because I'm trying to do this, not on the fly, but without enough lead time, without enough prep time. And prep takes a long time, unfortunately, as you can well imagine. But there we go. That looks pretty good, I think. And we'll get to that slide deck in just a moment. But you know, there's conflicts, there's differences of opinion, and we're going to be talking about those differences of opinion. People who I respect, who really think this war that we're helping Ukraine continue is the right thing to do. And I don't like to dismiss people's views out of hand, especially if they're people that I respect. But even if they're people I generally disagree with, unless I think, and so often I do, that people are motivated by greed, by selfishness, by their own personal interest, as opposed to what's best for the country, I'm going to listen to them. I want to hear what they have to say. And if they are motivated by greed, by selfishness, by doing something that's best for them, as opposed to what's best for all of us, I'm going to point that out, as I often did on my morning show. I think most of you think this is the right thing to do, to be fighting Ukraine, fighting with Ukraine, doing our utmost to keep that war going, rather than suing for peace. And I want to present that view, the one that I don't agree with. So here, this is from Shade, and he tried to post this. He had trouble doing it at the YouTube channel. Let me know if you struggle, but here's what he has to say. What triggered Putin's war? This is what Greg Palast, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, had to say. And Palast is someone who has demonstrated his progressive chops. He has been on the correct side of issues. He has written about, he has discussed the corruption of our government, of our nation, of our world by multinational corporations and the billionaire class. And that record gives him a moral authority to comment that people like Adam Schiff, an apologist for the military, and former generals who are now consultants for munitions corporations, they don't have that authority. Palast does. So Palast is claiming that the reason that we are fighting in Ukraine. Did you all hear that? I got this weird update, this AMD software. I'm going to turn off. I don't want to get those notifications. So what Palast is saying is that Putin is a religious zealot. He's a fanatic. He is a monomaniac. He is another Hitler. And that's what some of you have been arguing. Well, we're appeasing him. If we don't keep the flow of arms rushing into Ukraine, if we don't keep the fighting going, the killing going, then we're appeasing Putin, just as Neville Chamberlain appeased Hitler. I think there are massive differences and distinctions. One of the biggest ones, of course, is that the Nazis, in this case, the neo-Nazis, are fighting on the Ukraine side. The Azov Regiment, which does consist of neo-Nazis and was recently reconstituted after the Russians destroyed it, has a long and nefarious record as a haven for the neo-Nazi movement, which has always been strong in Ukraine. Now, there are reasons for that. A big reason is because the Stalinists were so brutal that, by contrast, the Nazis didn't look so bad, at least at first, to the Ukrainians, who also are Jew haters, many of them. It's a long tradition in Ukraine. It's a rough place to live. It's not, a warm, sunny Mediterranean climate there. And there's a lot of poverty, and there's also a lot of religious zealotry, and people are relatively easy prey in those circumstances to hating the other, in this case, Jews. So I'm not going to sit here and condemn all Ukraine, because there is a history of neo-Nazism and Nazism. What I'm going to say is to claim that trying to generate a peace process rather than continue to fight war is not akin to Munich-style Chamberlain appeasement For one big reason, the Nazis, to the extent that there are Nazis in this fight, are fighting for those we call the current day Czechs. They're not the ones we'd be appeasing. So that's a big reason. There are many other reasons. I want to get into all of them. But what Palast is saying is Putin is like a Hitler. And what we could do to get peace with Putin is possibly beyond our comprehension. Now, again, Shade views this as his position, I believe, and one that, in fact, he says it's enlightening, and he buy what he says. And this is what I hear from others like Arlen. The day Putin stops bombing the Ukraine occupying countries, the day the war is over. So, in other words, only Putin can stop this, and we have no agency whatsoever. All we can do is keep Ukraine going, keep propping them. And when I say going, fighting. There's no point in peace. That is what Palast is arguing. And we'll get to his next point in just a moment. I want to see if I can go back to my speaker. So here we go. I'm going to swap to the next slide in just a moment. You're listening to Ginsburg Show. Hal Ginsburg, 240-283-7262. Would love for you to join me. Would love to talk about this with you. I try to get as many positions as possible that are reasonable, not like anti. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll talk to people who don't believe the climate catastrophe, the climate cataclysm is real. But all I ask is you listen to me. I will listen to you. I will listen to your evidence. You listen to mine. All right, so getting back to Putin and why Palast, and this is more Palast, why Palast believes there's no reason to push for peace. So he says that there's this, the patriarchal, the great Russian is Kirill, and that is who Putin is bowing to. Kirill, this patriarch, is his source of power. And they're the ones, this religious movement, this fundamentalist religious movement that sides with the Russian Orthodox Church versus, I'll tell you in a minute why I think this is wrong, but among many other reasons, and we'll present some other evidence that goes to the other position. But according to Greg Palast, there is a schism, just as we've seen between the Catholics and the Protestants, and that led to religious wars, holy wars in the 17th century, the 30 Years' War, and many other wars that ripped asunder Europe. So this war is between the Russian Orthodox and the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And Kirill, the Russian Orthodox saint, is the patriarch, is commanding fundamentally that Russia must destroy the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. This is a crusade that Putin is waging against the heretics. That is the position that Palast takes. And I'm sure he has some evidence, some reason to believe. Now, one reason I don't buy it, look, Putin was in the Communist Party. Putin was the police chief, right? He was the chief of the secret police before the fall of the Communist Party. Now, that was an atheist movement. It's hard for me to see Putin as some kind of fundamentalist religious nut job when he was so closely tied to the Communist Party, the quote, godless, unquote, the atheistic Communist Party. Now, that doesn't mean maybe he was suppressing it. Maybe it's come out now. But I want to know, what's your reasoning for this? What's your rationale, Palast? And I'm not going to go through that whole article. I didn't see it. I didn't see that article. I didn't see that in the article, that here's how we know that Putin is a religious zealot, and this is a war of zealotry. And therefore, one we cannot reason with Putin. Now, I want to say a point about this. I don't believe even religious zealots you cannot negotiate with. I don't buy that. I think sometimes you can push people to the point where they're so extreme that they will not take any, that again, they will fight to the last person. but it's rare. It's not usual. There are people like that, and there are times when one side or the other can push and push and push until the other side becomes like that. But usually people at some point will listen to reason. Not everyone, not Hitler, but most people at some point will listen to reason. And Putin, throughout his career, has shown that he is a realist. He's a political realist. For a good example, when he was the president, he stepped back and let Medvedev take over, and he was the shadow power behind the throne. Putin has negotiated with the West. There is no question this guy is not a complete monomaniac. So I don't buy this argument, but this is the argument that Palace is putting together. And if someone wants to defend it, judge, explain why they support it, go ahead. 240-283-7262. Is Putin a heretic? Not a heretic. Is Putin fighting a war of heresy against the Ukrainian heretics, as Palace seems to believe? Do you buy that? Is that your position? 240-283-7262. 240-283-7262. Again, I'm Hal Ginsberg. You're listening to Halitics. You're watching Halitics. Let's get to the second part of Palace's argument. And he sees not only that he has to, this is according to Palace, he believes not only that he has to cast out the Ukrainian fundamentalists church, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, but according to Palace, the threat is, and you can see it highlighted there, is not from NATO, because when he talks about Ukraine and why he's fighting the war, he never brings up NATO. According to Palace, it's gays. Gays are the problem. Now, again, I'm struggling for the evidence. I understand this, and I believe that this kind of an argument, not that Palace doesn't believe it. I think he probably believes it. I'm not saying he's a liar. He's demonstrated he's a truthful person as far as he sees things. But this is an argument that we see often is where identity becomes the crucial issue. Are you on the side of a traditionally victimized group, or are you not? So the warmongers are saying, hey, if you don't support arming ongoing, continuous war with Russia, then you're a homophobe. You support throwing gays back into the closet, killing them, making them wear pink stars. That's what Putin's all about. And that is the kind of argument which we saw similarly when the run up to the war on Iraq. There are the rape rooms that Cutie, I believe that was his name, Cutie, Saddam Hussein, Saddam Hussein's son, Cutie, supposedly had these rape rooms where he would put women. And I remember hearing that phrase a lot on Hannity's show. It was being bandied about. Progressives would hear it. It's ways to get progressives on board war, endless war. If you don't support, and this has also been used to get some gay rights activists and GLBTQ people to support Israel's war on the Palestinians, because Israel is not a homophobic nation. It is a war nation that is Islamophobic and is persecuting Muslims, but it is not homophobic. And sadly, the efforts to pit gays against Muslims have been successful. And likewise, this is my belief, is what's being done here, is to try to pit gays, progressives against the homophobic Russian state. Now, even if it were true, I think there are better ways to protect gay rights than fighting endless war. And one of those is, now you could say, well, was there a better way to save Jews than to fight against Hitler? Not the same, not similar, it's a false analogy. It's a faux analogy. But again, this is used to foment fear, hatred of Russia, and an inability to believe that they can have that they'll act rationally. So the bottom line is, according to Palast, the bottom line, Russia is a theocratic state, which is kind of ironic, right? Because we always think of Russia as being a godless communist state, but now it's a theocratic state. They are not amenable to any reason. They are purely fundamental. That is Palast's argument. So why don't I accept that, beyond the fact that I don't think he's adduced much evidence? You'd have to go find for yourself. But why don't I believe that? What is keeping me from accepting that? So let me get to what I believe is powerful evidence to the contrary. And I rely on this gentleman a lot. Some people say, well, you shouldn't, right? I think Aaron Mate has demonstrated over and over that he really is about as knowledgeable, as intelligent, as informed as anybody when it comes to endless war and why it's wrong and why it's incredibly destructive. And Mate, many people just say, well, he's on Jimmy Dore, so therefore we don't believe him. And I mean, what kind of an argument is that? Is he wrong or isn't he? Has he been right or hasn't he? He was very, very right about the Syrian conflict. We shouldn't have been in there. We shouldn't have been perpetuating that in support of Al-Qaeda. He's right about Libya. He's been right over and over and over. He's right about Russiagate, that it was a hoax, that it was BS, it was based on the phony Steele dossier. Aaron Mate is consistently right, and he's, in my view, I'm very confident he's right again. So here is what Mate said back in October, and this is why, again, I'm not buying the argument of Palast, even though I respect Palast. I'm not buying his argument that Russia is fundamentalist in nature. We cannot reason with them. Because what Mate is saying here is that it's the U.S. choosing to prolong the war, despite fearing that more dangerous moments are yet to come. And he talks about how that is, how there were several options, including way back a year ago, just after Putin launched the offensive against Ukraine, which is bad. It's obviously not going the way Russia wants. I'm sure Putin wishes it was long since over, but they are fighting on Ukrainian territory. They have advanced beyond the borders of Crimea and into the Donbass region and even into eastern Ukraine. So this war is being fought on Ukrainian territory, and it's incredibly destructive. And despite the fact that the argument is Putin, you cannot negotiate with him. He's a zealot. He's a fanatic. He proposed to Zelensky, hey, we'll withdraw. We'll withdraw to the Crimea, which we already occupied. Some argue, you want to call it illegal, fine. Illegal occupation of the Crimea. We'll withdraw. We'll withdraw to the eastern Donbass, as long as we have a commitment that Ukraine is not going to join NATO. And we're going to get those U.S. forces and weapons out of there at some point. And the U.S. said, no, we're not going to go along with that. We're not going to do, if you negotiate a peace with Russia, don't expect us to go along with that. Don't expect us to say we're not going to keep pressuring if there's another president for Ukraine to join NATO. Don't expect us to get our weapons out of Ukraine. Don't expect us to stop pushing for eastward NATO expansion into the Baltic states. And Zelensky said, okay, fine. I'm not going to do it. No negotiations. So how does that would show pretty strongly, right, that Putin's not a fanatic, because he was willing to pull back. And if he's such a fanatic, then wouldn't he be doing everything war of terror against those Ukrainian heretics. But according to Mate, Putin has not been extraordinarily aggressive or violent. And here is more evidence of that. Some American officials, this is from the New York Times, this is not written by Aaron Mate. He is quoting it. This is from his Twitter feed. Some American officials expressed concern that the most dangerous moment yet to come, even as Putin has avoided, this is in October of last year, has avoided escalating the war in ways that have at times baffled Western officials. So Western officials, why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you killing more Ukrainians? Why aren't you being more aggressive? He has made only limited attempts to destroy critical infrastructure or to target government buildings, not attack supply hubs outside Ukraine. So the point is that it hasn't been a total war on Russia's part, or at least it hadn't been. It's getting worse and worse and worse as the US has prevented negotiations with Russia. That is not evidence. In fact, it's evidence to the contrary, that Putin is some kind of a crazed fanatic, a right-wing zealot, a religious kook. By the way, sorry about the blue. I know the video look is not ideal. I get I'm blue tinged. I saw someone say that. I'll get a better camera at some point. Remember, this is the soft launch. We are not out here doing everything perfectly the first go round, not that you ever could. But I will be improving things on a slow basis, not doing the program every single day because of my part-time gigs, doing the best I can here. Help me out, 240-283-7262. All right, it's just a little before 11:30, and we'll go to, let's see, we had some, okay, so now let me move on. I want to get to my feel-good story. So let's see if we can get that up. And it's kind of a little early for a feel-good story on this. I mean, for this story, maybe I shouldn't be calling it a feel-good story. I think is what I guess is what I'm trying to say. Let me see if I want to make sure you can see this whole thing. Maybe I get rid of put my little circle up there, just playing around, just kind of futz and fiddling. Some people don't like that. Well, so let's see if we can get this to work. I'm gonna make myself really little, just see a little bit of me. And make that even smaller too. So here's your feel-good story. Hashtag Stop Willow is taking TikTok by storm. Can it actually work? CNN, March 5th. So this Willow expansion is in the Arctic, and it is a drilling project. It's basically cut down all the willows that are on the Arctic Ocean. I guess there must be some there. So we can drill and we can just, put the final kibosh on our climate, which is obviously crazy hot, crazy. We've had the 8 hottest, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. When I left Monterey in 2014. I was talking a lot about the climate catastrophe then. Since then, the 8 hottest years on record have all come and gone. So it's getting worse and worse and worse. And people say, "Oh, we're getting better. We're emitting less fossil fuels. We're transitioning." It's a load of crap. It's a complete load of crap. 2022 was the year when globally we emitted more fossil fuels. We burned more fossil fuels, more tons of fossil fuels than ever in history. Was 2022. So that's obviously making things worse, not better. The only way, and to the extent the U.S. may be within our shores burning less, it's only because we've offshored so much of our manufacturing to Asia, where they're burning the energy, where they're burning the fuels, creating the energy, not us. And it's only making things even worse because, of course, the diesel container ships and the jets that bring all that, those goods across the oceans and across continents are generating incredible amounts of greenhouse gases. In fact, transportation is the sector that creates the largest amount of greenhouse gases. So whatever we're doing isn't working. The solution is what I've been saying for 10 years. If you listened to me 10 years ago, you know we've got to raise the price to the consumer. I know people don't want to hear that. I know they don't want to do it. I know they'll say we can't do that. Well, fine, maybe we can't. We don't do that. We don't save the planet. One way you raise the price of fossil fuels is you generate fewer of them. You produce fewer of them. You extract less out of the ground. You keep it in the ground. That will raise the price. People will use something else. How do we do that? Well, I give Elise Joshi. Now, you have to, at this point, given, and I've been talking a lot about Ukraine. That is without question the crise du jour, the crisis of the day, sans question, without question. But the crise du millennium, or of the ages, is the climate catastrophe that we are causing, the cataclysm, the cliff that we're teetering over, and maybe are already falling off of it. And anything we can do to save the planet. That's why I do this program. That's why I actually moved to Monterey. So back in 2005. Why did I do that? Because of the need, I believe then, and still believe now, to try to do whatever I can to make things just a little bit better and address, among other things, this existential threat. Well, Elise Joshi's doing a heck of a better job than I am, just like Greta Thunberg is doing a heck of a better job getting people motivated to make a difference. And she posted a TikTok video. I'm going to try to play that for you. You may have trouble. About the Willow Project. She didn't have high hopes for it, but it's just blown up. Over 100,000 views. And that's caused many, many activists, I believe millions of calls at this point, to the president's office, to the White House. And let me see if I can get a little more of this story for you. So see if we can make it big enough so you can read the rest of this. So here's what Joshi has to say. She posts about climate issues on TikTok for Gen Z for change. And she said, usually her climate posts don't do that well, but this one is over 300,000 now on TikTok. I don't never watch a TikTok video. I don't know what the hell it would look like. It's my most viewed video in months. The entire internet is advocating against Willow. President Biden's voter base that trusted him to act on climate. So that's the question, right? Can we trust him to act on climate? Are we making a mistake putting any trust in the Democrats? And I guess you have to trust someone, and we don't have any other alternatives. I think we've got to be focused on the Greens, because look, Biden is promoting this Willow Project. I hope he doesn't do it. I hope he says no. Maybe he will. CNN is saying, can it work? Can this work? Well, maybe it can. Let's hope it can. I'm going to get to see if I can play that video for you. I want to just see if there's anything else here before we get to it. But that is my feel-good story for sure of the day, is that maybe, just maybe, we can make a difference. We can have something get a little bit better. I'm hoping that. We're going to see if we can get this video to play for you. I don't know. It doesn't look like it. All right. So we're not going to get the video. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I thought I might have a shot at getting it for you guys. It's just after 11:30. We'll cut this short. I got to get up to a hearing in a few minutes, about 25, 30 minutes. I'm going to be up at a hearing. I'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget. Do not forget. You have got to be with me. Not tomorrow, which would be Wednesday, if I have my math right. You have got to be with me Thursday, where we're joined by the great American patriot, the woman who has done more for the cause of peace than anyone, and that would be Medea Benjamin. I'll see you tomorrow, though. Yeah, I'll have a great day. And then the day after tomorrow, Thursday, we'll have Medea.